Married.
October 20th.
Ah,
No, I won't be here for Oktoberfest either. I gotta go to California for 2 weeks.
oh.
Yeah, I know. I'm not too happy about it.
Would you just probably shoot Jeff a note? saying
Yeah.
that
Just an email.
Yeah.
Motion to, what do you call it?
Adjourn.
Yeah, there we go. All in favor?
Who seconded
Mr.
it?
Oh,
Butcher.
we have a second on that,
I'll
sorry.
second it.
We have a second.
We'll second after we said we're in favor, but we got it.
The ayes have it.
The ayes have it. Aye.
Hope it doesn't rain this weekend, so.
I like number 35. No refund because of. Sorry.
My fault, I mean,
Yep, should have a 10.
Robert,
Goose.
you sorry.
Different than bird food.
Yes, it is. Bigger.
It's Matt for you.
That's Matt, you just look solemn over there.
I am solemn. The world's wearing heavy on me.
Oh, gee. This is not
The
good.
mantle of power is
Yeah, yeah, that
heavy.
too.
With great power. Great responsibility.
They're not allowed in here.
They don't really work here.
No, that's true.
You gotta sign in.
Okay, everyone ready to rock and roll? You ready to go, Lynn?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Do we need a roll call? We don't need a roll call,
No,
right?
that's
Okay. Okay, first, the easy one, which I don't even know why we do, but, why we need an authorization, but we need to advertise for the volunteers for the rec commission, which is, what are you guys down to, 4? Are you 4?
The zoning boards.
Zoning board, sorry, yes, are you 4?
4.
4, and, rec commission, I believe, is 3. Lori McVeigh has, resigned, so, anyway, I'd like to make a motion to advertise, for volunteers for rec commission and ZBA.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, second one, I don't want you to, the second was, a discussion on Dockside, Jeff had put down permit process and fees, but I think we're a ways away from that. I know Marie and Fran have been working on stuff. I just wanted to get it on there because we have 2 requests, and we should really start thinking of, you know, what we can and can't do down there, what we have down there, what we need down there to do whatever we'd like to do. So I just wanted to start a discussion there. I did talk to Evan, I met with Evan down there regarding, one of the questions was whether if you had an event there, like a wedding or whatever, how would you, you know, how could you quadrant that off or fence it off or do whatever so that other people, you know, because everyone's entitled to be in the park. So that doesn't seem to be a problem. I think we could put signs around, like a perimeter of an area and, you know, some of the park open in sections, to do that with. There is some trimming on trees that we can do and other stuff that, you know, we just have to kind of run by him. some of the things we need is, or consider, we don't have to do, but, would be a new entry sign stating it's Dockside Park managed by the Village of Cold Spring. We need, a sign with dog rules, people rules, hours of the park. One thing that would be good would be a gate, but, the problem there is that it's actually Laura Bergman's property at the entry, so I think we'd have to come up with a design or something that she would approve of, to kind of control traffic or people. Right now, you can just drop a rope and drive in there at night, so, that's not optimal.
What if we put the gate, further north?
Well, if you put it further north, then you have to put a fence across all the property.
Why do we need a gate?
Why would you need a gate?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't needed a gate for all these years, why we?
Well, because if we start putting things in there, like either picnic tables, or if there's anything like that in there that we wanna protect or whatever,
Oh, I mean, I wasn't, just thinking
Yeah.
people renting it at this point.
or people rent, and
Well,
people renting it too, or.
People rent it, I believe, Murray, you spoke to Evan, right, and he said that they've rented it on a regular basis over the years.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
They
Dave.
didn't do a lot of it. They had events that they rented to, I would say on an infrequent basis.
I'm just bringing it up, I think there should be a gate there. I mean, she said people, driving in there, or there were people on motorcycles, which I guess a gate wouldn't help.
So
Maybe it would.
We would have to run a fence like along this side and then gate it off.
Well, you
They won't be driving through her yard.
no, you'd have to put the gate there and run it, east and west.
That's what I'm saying, if the gate's here,
Yeah, you'd have to
And then you
run a
have to run a
fence,
gate.
no, you'd have to run a fence that way.
oh, you couldn't run back to the.
Well, you could
post?
run it that way too, I don't
Unless
think
she didn't want that on her property.
I don't think she'd want that.
Cause yeah, she owns all the way down the river, the width of her house and yard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those were a couple things. What's down there now is, as far as electric, we have two places that there's electric. There's a pole that has receptacles, which is at the turn on the driveway in the woods kind of, and then there's another one, there's like 4 receptacles that are across from that, across the driveway in that tree area where the Film Society has their, their filming in there. So those are the only 2 places. So if we did wanna move, wanna place that somewhere else, we have to think of what we're gonna do with electric. If you wanted to have a wedding there, or they wanted to be moved somewhere down, more east or whatever, something to think about. I think there's one more pole that goes past the one that's there, that runs, east. So something could be done there, and I don't know what the cost would be, but another thing we should think about. Water, there's one hand pump that's in that tree area. It's got really good pressure, but you have to pump it, and I don't even know if it's drinkable. So, that should be something, I think, if we're gonna decide on having weddings or something there, or if we need water, we need to think about that. There's no bathrooms or, porta johns or anything, so we could talk to, the Film Society in the summer, or try to piggyback on someone, or else, if we're gonna offer events and charging people, we should, discuss that. And there's no lighting, obviously, either, with limited, electric. The other thing was parking and the limit on the number of vehicles. I think we should really just do a site visit and see what's there. Just talking with Evan, it was just roughly probably 20 cars, or 20 to 30, somewhere in there, but it was really vague on what he thought would be, would work down there if we wanted to have an event with a few cars. I'm sure we wanna limit to as few as possible. The other thing, I think, when we're doing a fee schedule, is I think we have not-for-profits, and we've been waiving a lot of those, but it seems like everybody's a not-for-profit, and I feel that a certain percentage should be shown that goes back to our community before we waive,
No way to give them a
fees.
discount, but I don't think we should waive it totally.
Right,
I
exactly.
agree with that.
So, that's another thing I think we should think of when we're doing a fee schedule. I know if anyone else has, and right now we have 2 requests, one's for a wedding. Actually, I think the wedding's gonna be at the chapel, and then they wanted to have the reception down there. But I don't know the specifics on that. I have been in touch with the lady, and so I told her I'd get back to her once we had more information. And then Malia has asked also for a date, I believe in July, to have her, what she did last year, the yoga retreat or whatever. So I told her again, we were working on it, so I didn't have a fee schedule.
We have another wedding that came in a couple months ago, that's an actual wedding ceremony,
Oh, okay.
in June, I believe, of next year. And he's waiting for, we told him, yes, he could have it, we would get him the contract and the fee schedule.
Okay. So you were working on this? Is this-
Yeah, I sent you something today which was very quickly done off the top of my head. Marie and I had met a couple of times and I had said that I would move on and of course I didn't. So we combined, this is basically what Parks Department has for their contract and their application. And I put some notes in the back of different things we wanted to add, quotes from, like sections from Boscobel and from the chapel and their contracts about deposits, about carry in, carry out cleaning. This is, you know, by no means anything official, and then I just had, some thoughts for everybody to think about. The first thing is like, I'm really not, Parks Department says you have to have their application in at least 10 days, 10 business days before your event. I would think it should be more like at least 30 days, but that's something we can think about. And then do we want to have a generic application for like weddings versus camping versus, you know, having a yoga event? Or do we wanna price those, everything by hour, do we wanna price them by event, or how do we wanna do that? And then the other thing Marie and I had spoken about, are we going to get to the point where we need to hire an events manager for this area, and how would we pay them, or what would we pay them? So those are things that should be part of the discussion going forward.
Oh, yeah, Marie and I also talked about that. I think Maria's idea was, maybe a per diem type, the person we could hire that would, you know,
Right.
if we contacted someone or someone would be interested in taking it on, we pay them per event, because we need someone to coordinate, we need somebody to be down there. We also might have to hire someone to be there to, you know, to kind of control if we have traffic in there during every event. So it might be 2 hires there, but I think a per diem thing might work well. We wouldn't have to, you know, with a percentage of, you could add it to the fee.
I had I kind of just read this proposal quickly before I came down, but, one question I had, is there anything about liability insurance in here?
There was.
Did I miss that?
The Parks had a sample insurance form on the back of this, which I cut out,
Uh-huh,
so I'm sure it's in here someplace, but I don't really know, but absolutely, you know, insurance is absolutely part of this, and I think, it's on the front. Permit is not valid until fees and insurance certificate, number 1, are received. It doesn't go into the details right here, and that's something that we would add with I guess, the fee schedule.
okay.
Okay, so just for now, I just wanted to bring these up, and if we can like kind of think about a bunch of things that I had brought up and what's on this list, and other thoughts, and then we'll set up a workshop soon on that. But
Are any of the requests this fall, weddings?
no, they're all next year.
Okay.
So we got
We'll
some
get
time. I think when's the one wedding, June?
Yeah.
First
So
one.
there's one in June, one in,
There's 2 in
the
June.
other thing's in
The
July.
other one's in June
In
or
June,
July.
alright. So we got a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have ZBA recommendations for posting public hearings, or actually posting signs. So Aaron, if you wanna, would you like to run us through a few things? We have your recommendations here, which I've read through, and
Sure. So the recommendation is that there be signs posted on properties when there's a public hearing before a village board, notifying the public in general about the hearing. This is something that has come up a couple of times since I've been on the ZBA. People are confused about which board is holding the hearing, which board contacted them about a hearing, getting the boards confused, or not being notified at all, or not seeing the notice in the paper or the mail. Frequently, when there's a public hearing, as you know, you have to send out notification to the immediate neighbors, and probably half to less than half actually are signed.
that's
In return.
the applicant?
Yeah, that's on the applicant to do that. So I think this is a quick and easy and cheap way to let everybody know, not only the people who are diligent newspaper readers and who live in the immediate area of the property in question, that there's something going on that they might be interested in. That's the general pitch. Donald McDonald said it's something he's wanted to do for a long time, and he's of course been a ZBA chair in the past for many years. Matt's here to speak for the planning board, I think. And I spoke with Kathleen of the Historic Review Board, and she said that there were mixed feelings in the past on that, mixed feelings about it on the past, although she personally supported it. So I don't want to speak for the HDRB on that.
For the notifications from the owners, that doesn't happen all the time?
Well, it does happen, and we require that they bring the receipts back, but that's no proof that the letters were actually opened. It's only proof that they were mailed. So in the last, we had a public hearing last week, and I think 3 out of 7 had been opened. That's when you get the return receipt back, at least in time for the hearing.
Aaron, typically the people that don't sign aren't here, and that's the reason that they don't sign. Having a sign up, it doesn't seem to me would increase the coverage for people who are here only on weekends or only a couple of times a month. I'm not opposed to the proposal at all, but I'm not sure that it would increase the awareness of the people who are mailed the certified letters.
Yeah, those are the only people who are actually notified directly.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not checking their mail, and they're not at home, there's nothing we can do.
Agreed.
But what we can do is, one more house over, notify that person by
Mhm.
means of the sign or increase the visibility
Or
of the notice.
across the street.
Yeah,
Interested parties, yeah.
because we have the newspaper and the website, and I think some of them make it onto Facebook occasionally. So this would certainly increase the chances that somebody who is adjacent to the property would know about it. The neighbor next door might say, hey, I saw that neighbor B is having a public hearing. Did you get a notice? Oh, let me check my mail. So it'll get people talking about it in the immediate block.
And I think the issue isn't just the green cards and the blast zone. I think there's a larger overarching issue of just notice, right? And I think the earlier that we can get neighbors talking to each other, the less chance we're going to have of things like Shedgate and these other things where it's just, how interested are you in doing this, and how much problem am I going to have with you if I do this, right? I think people can kind of address those things early on. But even when you don't look at just neighbor by neighbor, one thing that came up, and what we've been doing on our board, is just kind of informally surveying. So did you see the notice? Did you understand the notice? We get people coming in after the fact. A good example is 126 Main, Carolyn Flowers, right? So you've got the blast zone, which is just 4 buildings around it, and nobody knows that we're taking down a historic building because they're not notified by a green card, right? But yet, I don't think it's really accurate to say you're not impacted by that demolition, right? If you want to preserve historic fabric, if you like the view shed, if you want to protect the view shed. So what I've seen and what we brought up when we had our joint board meeting was these, yes, they're big, they're ugly, but there is the one issue that we had during Shedgate is, when is constructive notice, right? When should you have known that something was happening, right? You can really kind of eliminate that whole thing when you put a big sign out in front. These are ones that I just saw in Telluride. They're basically probably larger than a real estate sign that basically just says notice. And then basically I saw they're all over in Vancouver. They're much larger in Vancouver, but it basically just says it's under application to the zoning board, to the historic review board. And so then everybody's got notice. Because, so I've asked people, I said, listen, if there was a sign up, this one guy came to Seeker, we had already done the approval for 126 Main, and he had said, oh, is it too late to talk about to oppose the demolition? I said, yeah, it's way too late. And he goes, I didn't know anything about it. And I said, let me ask you something, and we've been doing this at my board, would a sign have done anything for you? And unanimously, they've all said yes, right? I would see the sign, and I would know that something's happening, right? Now, granted, that's gonna, increase calls to the village board, it's gonna increase traffic in, but I think the sooner you get people talking, the better. And ultimately, I think the result is, look, and even if you have a, you know, for lack of a better word, or really the formal term, a neighbor from hell, all the better to know how opposed they are to your project before you start your project. I mean, when we did our garage, which required a variance, you know, for side yard and rear yard setback, we talked to every single neighbor on the up and down both blocks. The ZBA came in and go, why'd you talk to us? You know, why do I have cars? I said, because I just want to know that everybody supports this. I don't want any surprises. And, you know, and so I think there's a larger issue than just the blast zone, right? I think that there are other people that are impacted that don't have constructive notice. I don't think people are really taking the time to read legal notices in the newspaper. But that's our requirement under the law. But I think these signs, I think the reason that a lot of municipalities, Telluride, I don't know if anybody's been there, but it's impossibly beautiful. I mean, it's just like all these Victorian cottages, but you know, when they're $4 million a pop, you know what I mean? So they know that everybody's in very close, set very close, even closer than the village, you know, so I think they know that you can't change your drapes without impacting your neighbor, right? You know, so, you know, all the better. I think that's why these communities that have really beautiful, you know, view sheds and conditions of properties, I think that's why they're doing these signs. And like I said, we've kind of just informally canvassed, you know, folks saying, would a sign have helped where you didn't get noticed? And they have consistently said yes.
Would this apply to every single public hearing?
I think it should apply to any public hearing involving a single property where you can put up a sign. So you wouldn't need a sign if you're having a public hearing to change the village code. But if you need a variance to build a fence or to have an addition on your house, or
I'm thinking of the business district.
well, let's
How
look
does
at
that work?
the proposal for the Silver Spoon to go from 5 hotel rooms to 7.
12.
To 12, which just came in. So they're going to add seven new rooms. That's going to be a parking issue. So I would think that you would want to
It's going to be an egress issue.
put a sign up
Windows.
for that, even though you're not actually changing the exterior or the dimensions of the building, from what I know at this
Well, we don't know if they're changing it. I don't know if they're going to keep that
Yeah.
storefront. You know,
So that's what I'm thinking is anytime there's a place where specific to the hearing, that's when you would want to have the sign.
I was thinking would that work for change of use as well? Would you need one?
I personally think it's anything that's under application to a board. Because what I've seen consistently, you know, sitting on that board and now this board and just dealing with neighbors is people, the reaction is much more negative when they feel like they didn't have a voice and they didn't have a chance and they didn't have, you know, I mean, if you get people talking sooner, let's say this is an application, right? There's a variance that is somehow going to fit 12 hotel rooms on that first floor, right? And will it still have the bayed storefront that, you know, that is a view shed that we're all very familiar with? You know, so the sooner you get people talking about that, I think the better. So I personally think that it's anything that's under application.
Okay, that's
But-
different though,
But,
than what this says.
no, that's not mine. That's Aaron's, right? So I think that's, if you want to just go with public hearing, I think it's a good start. Because typically, any change of use in the district it's in our code, has to go for public hearing. So that would work. For the planning board, it works fine. But I don't know about, well, yeah, demolition in the historic district would go for public hearing. Yeah, so public hearing, I think we could cover it.
I would,
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, you're going to get things like shed, you know, you're going to get things like, you know, porch renovations, which are a dime a dozen, window replacements. There'd be way too many of these. So the visual clutter would be pretty crazy.
But those do not necessarily go to hearings.
That's what I'm saying. They wouldn't require public hearings, so you wouldn't do a sign if we just did it for public hearing.
my thought on the public hearing is that the public hearing has a fairly limited scope of time, but the application can sometimes go on for months. And you
Yes.
probably don't want to keep a sign up, or you'll have them up everywhere for a long time.
Well, I think to me, I thought it was a good idea when I was on the town board. I thought, you know, they were discussing it, I think, and I don't think they've done that, but I've seen them in other towns, and you notice them, and you know that something's going on. And I think it's just another layer of, you know, information for people, so that you've done your best to get it out there, and I think, you know, it's incumbent on people to actually, you know, call in or find out what's going on. One of my things I sent back to you at the 11th hour was, I just think the sign should be very simple. I think it should be a notice, you know, it's a simple notice of a public hearing. And so we could not get into the dates or whatever and put the information to contact either the clerk or the website which posts it, and,
But if the objective is to make people cognizant of what is going to be happening to the property, then the sign should include the changes that are being considered. It should include the date that the hearing is going to occur, so that the individual knows whether or not it is of interest to them, as opposed to, I understand what you're saying, it's very,
I just disagree.
yeah, the sign that Aaron sent us had the basic information on the left, and on the right was that glassine envelope, or whatever it's called, which would contain a copy of the public notice, which describes the changes that are being considered, the date of the hearing, the location of the hearing, the applicant's name.
The legal description of the property, I think you're right, I think it should be the same as the public notice.
So our thought process in that, as we looked at the different types of signs that are out there, and I did read what you sent, but we had not come across that one. Our thought process was that we wanted to balance usable information for the people who see the sign versus creating extra work for Jeff and other people in the village and extra cost. So this seemed to be a pretty good compromise. You could get that information there. If we get them to put the sign within 3 feet of the sidewalk, you can lean over and read the public notice. Nobody has to scratch anything on a grease pencil on a sign. And
Well, just personally, I would disagree. I just think people are gonna see it from the road or whatever. I don't know how many people are gonna go up and read it, for one thing.
yeah.
You know, maybe people are walking down Main Street, how many people do that? And then if they see the sign, I think that everybody disagrees, I guess.
No,
Some people-
when you said how many people walk down Main Street.
Right, I guess they
So-
should, I didn't, it wasn't more specific.
With
I have that
interest.
problem about not being really specific.
If you had used Academy Street, I would have agreed.
Well, that's not true, you should come over.
I would
Lots of walking
suggest,
over there.
I mean, I don't, Jeff, I'm in the office all the time, Jeff can handle 15, I mean, how many
I don't know,
applications or
we've
how many
we've
public
had
hearings?
4 this year, 4 public hearings.
Well, but
And
I
is
like
that
it.
a burden?
It should say what it's in reference to.
Yeah, but I like
though,
the
if you
fact
just-
that there's a sheet there.
Yeah, if it just says public hearing, it would be like, well, what'd this guy do?
Well, someone's gonna
That would be
have,
like-
someone's gonna have to change the signs then and tape those on and bring
Yeah,
them
but the-
over.
I think it should
But
be,
the-
I think it should be the applicant's job.
I agree.
The sign comes to the village,
Yeah, the
and then
applicant,
we put the new
I
posting
think
in
the
and
applicant
give
has
it
to
out
put
to
up
the
a
next
sign.
person.
The applicant should put up the sign.
at their
and the
expense, I mean, the village shouldn't be paying
Well,
for
that's
people
my
to develop their
next question.
properties.
This is part of
Yeah.
your fees now, for getting a variance
I
or
mean,
whatever you wanna get.
Yeah, I mean, no different than giving sets of plans, we need a, whatever, an 18 by 24 sign that's laminated, that can be posted on, that can be prominently displayed,
Maybe we get some made as an example.
So
Yeah, we'd have to
Our
show them
pro-
samples, right?
our proposal is that the village will provide the signs so that they're identifiable as from the village and are
Big space.
consistent. And then if the sign is lost, then the applicant has to replace it or pay to replace it. I think, Dave, with your idea of not having anything on the sign, if you do go that way, then the website needs to have a clear public hearings section that you can get to right from the homepage.
Jeff has been putting a lot of them on the front
Yeah,
page,
I've, s-
but, not always. I like the idea of putting, for example, if you're walking down Main Street and you see a house for sale and they have the little sheets.
Oh, the
inside.
takeaway sheet?
Yeah, I mean, similar to that, we don't necessarily have to have a takeaway sheet, but you can stop and just get the basics of it, and then know if you want more information. From what I read from Aaron, from your description, like this original sign it's paid for by the village, it comes back here, and then if we're gonna put it out again, we change what's slipped into the pocket for the new public hearing, and then the person puts it out in front. My question is, if you have say a building on Main Street that has no grass or someplace to stick the sign, where are we gonna put it?
Well, what I have in the proposal here is that whichever board is calling for the public hearing would work with the applicant to find a way to display the sign on the property. So if there's no place to stick the sign in the ground, then maybe it goes in the, the tree area by the curb, or maybe it gets taped in the window or something.
Yeah, in the window, which is where you have to put your building permit now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think as long as it's prominently displayed and it's not a trip hazard, I think that it's,
And how big of a sign are people gonna want sticking in their window for?
Yeah, but if you're gonna
Want
do a
people be going
project-
over your window to read it also.
If you're gonna do a project, you put up with it.
Yeah.
You only have to
It's
have a
I
it's
like
10
the
We're
idea
trying to
of-
make things easier for everyone, including the people, the applicants plus the boards, and
I
get
like-
the information out there.
It's actually, the
10 days.
purpose is to make it, is to disseminate the information to a broader audience. It's
Mhm.
not to make necessarily the applicant's life easier. This seems to me to be a minimal burden on the applicant to obtain the sign from the village office, slip the,
Well, I think if you look at it that way, that's one way to look at it, if you just break it down there. But if an applicant's coming in here and then they're paying their escrow, I mean, I hear people bitching all the time in here, sorry, Steve's got me going, about,
we should start keeping track.
about the that would be my first.
Swear jar.
About the process.
I'm sorry,
It is, go back on, it's on film, you can see. I just think,
first tonight.
I'm not gonna argue, I mean, I think that the simpler it is and the easier it is for people. I'm not here, and I don't think anyone's here to like bust applicants, and keep putting layers and layers and more stuff on them,
I don't think there's.
I just think it should be easy, and the processes should be more easy. So I hear you all, I'm not gonna argue with it anymore. I mean, that's mine, I hear everybody else is fine with it, so put the notices there and put them in the window and deal with people changing them. And if they're not gonna make calls or do whatever, don't be surprised if they're not doing that. I'm fine with it, either way. I was just thinking that who's gonna put the signs, who's gonna pick them up, where we're gonna store them, who's gonna get them and bring them. I'm all for the signs. I just think putting the onus on the owners, along with other things and the amounts of money that they don't feel like they should be paying for our attorneys or anything else, which I know is all part of doing business, but I thought
Well, one
You just show them
advantage of-
Shedgate videos, and they'll probably be okay with the whole concept, because it really went bad there. And everyone said, oh, we didn't know, and,
it's not
Yeah.
public meeting right now.
Do you send letters out to like neighbors if there's a public hearing?
Cards,
Yes.
yeah.
Right, so they get something already. Like,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that most people don't acknowledge or pay attention to,
Oh,
and
that's
you might
their
not be a
fault.
neighbor that
That's
got it.
limited
down
too.
Yeah, I understand it's limited, but like,
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
the
I think that's
advantage
pretty
to,
good.
the advantage
Get a
to
letter.
the applicant is that more people know about it. There'll be fewer.
Not necessarily an advantage for the,
Yeah.
for the
Well,
that I
applicant.
agree.
definitely double-edged sword.
So there'll be fewer surprises.
Exactly,
And
that's what you avoid.
theoretically, that will make the public hearing smoother, and it would give the applicant an opportunity, because I suspect people will go, what are you doing? And the applicant may have an opportunity to discuss that with whomever is on the phone.
Yeah, because otherwise, the only other avenue, is a lawsuit, right? Because it's gone too far, it's gone past the public hearing, the approvals are in place. So your only avenue is to say, well, the board made an improper decision, right? So at least the sooner you get people talking, we're supposed to want to notice people, right? So I think to the extent that we make our best effort at that, I don't see how that could be a downside. But I do agree, Dave, that in the short term, it's going to be a double-edged sword, because then you're going to have people, But look, they'll at least then come to the village hall, they'll review the file, right? Or they don't, but at least then they don't say they didn't have constructive notice, right?
It's more of an open concept or whatever.
Yeah.
So Aaron, you provided us with the procedures section of the code, which is where this would go. Matt, can you tell us where in the planning board portions of the code you think this should go for the planning board?
I think it should go into neighbor notification, right? I think it should be part of the notification process, is that there's certified return receipts, and there's the, there's the, the visible posting of a,
Can you just send me
Write it
the,
up, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just the,
Yeah.
it's 134 dash
oh,
whatever.
the code section, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, because I would think that we would wanna make the wording exactly the same for both, or as close as possible for both. The tree advisory board, was there any discussion, was it Jennifer, on this?
And
No.
should they?
Oh,
I
the
did-
wells.
I didn't know that they held public hearings.
No.
They, well, they put up notices about events that, trees that are potentially coming down.
I would limit it to the three basic boards, HDRB, planning and zoning at this point.
Well, if the tree advisory board notices that something is going to happen to a tree, I would think that that should be,
But that's village property only, right?
yes, you're right.
It is,
It's
yeah.
village property, or it's not clear whose property it is.
So we're doing it anyway.
Okay, so, and so the HDRB is on either side of this?
I think you have to talk to them, and I only spoke with Kathleen about it, and
She said there's strong support, but there was a couple members, she said, that weren't fully supportive, but were more concerned about things like privacy and visual clutter and kind of administering it.
Would the sign have to be in keeping with the period of the building?
Old English font.
Yeah.
So theoretically,
Ye old notice.
a property could have 3 signs on it simultaneously.
I don't think that's a great idea. That's why I think, if the applicant, I think the referral should really kind of dictate what the language that's right on the referral, right? These code sections say, just got it today for Silver Spoon, right? That there's a section of the code that says change of use, you gotta go to the planning board. There's a section of the code that says, that's referenced, 64, that you gotta go to the HDRB. So what I have seen in these signs, which I think is very helpful, is this property is under application to these 3 boards for this following reason, right? Change of use from restaurant to hotel, right? And that those trigger a public hearing, right?
Well, that's different than what you're seeing here.
Well, Aaron and I have not coordinated, this is last minute,
Okay.
so I think that you're right, because otherwise you're gonna have 3 signs on I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, you're gonna.
Which is what Donald has related that he has seen in other communities, that
Oh, right.
a particular property is going through a zoning change, it's going through a historic board change, and there's a planning board change. And each one of them has a separate date for their hearings, and the reason for each board hearing the matter is because this is in the zoning code, this is in the planning board code, and this is in the HDRB code. So,
That certainly would be
Wouldn't
the way to keep the signs up for the shortest period,
yes,
because if something's under review by some boards, it's gonna take a very long time. Like, we're getting them out in like 3 meetings, I mean, that's not the case in some of these other reviews.
yeah.
So, you're right, if it's a single sign, it would just sit there for, until the, I mean, I guess you could have the lead agency decide.
Would all
Yeah.
these reviews be happening at the same time, or
No.
does one
No.
push to the next? So-
Well,
Some
So you
take
don't
longer
really
than
have-
others.
and we've been trying to, we have one of our first like joint hearings, because it's just to put the applicant through all these public hearings and all these, which ultimately, if one board doesn't agree, that's the gating issue anyway. So we're trying to we're determining, the lead agency, so as you've seen, HDRB's been lead agency, which has not been the case before.
But that's the sequence. What you're talking about is the sequence for
Where the
the
public
hearings.
which triggers the
Right.
public hearing, right,
Right,
and the
not-
timing of that.
Not necessarily the fact that there are 3 separate public hearings.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that then that would then have 3 signs up, and at least 1 or
Yes.
2 of them might come down.
Yes,
But otherwise, you'd have 1 sign up for the whole period, right? But it may not have the dates of the public hearing, because you wouldn't have them set yet.
Right. But that
I've
was
seen
like-
them both ways, where it's just that the project, this property is under application to these 3 boards, right? And it's basically just a constructive notice to say, go to the village hall, check out what's going on, right, if you have interest. The public notice sign is much finer focused, right? That there's gonna be a public hearing on this project, right? But if you were to notify them up front, right, that it's under application, anybody that has interest can track the progress of whether or not when it's gonna come to public hearing.
But having it under application does not necessarily mean it's going to a public hearing. I'm sorry, this is an application, this only gets triggered when something is referred to the ZBA, the planning board, or the HDRB.
Right.
It is,
That
I'm
would go to
thinking
public hearing.
it's only when a public hearing date is set. That's when, then 10 days before the public hearing, that's when the sign goes in.
and then it stays up until the hearing is closed.
Right.
And at that period, and at that time, there would only be one, or there's possibility of 3 signs that would go up.
I don't know, there probably have been one applicant having 3 meetings in a week, 3 public hearings in a week.
Couldn't that be communicated in that little thing that holds the
I-
notice?
Yeah, I think it's a simple enough thing to solve, just to keep it at one sign. I don't think we want 3 signs up if
Then
they
you have-
overlap.
Then you have the onus on the applicant to determine what goes into.
It seems like something that can be
They're gonna
worked.
be more than willing, from what I understand, to be putting these signs up.
But don't we give them what they're gonna put into that project? I mean, it's going to be the notices you said, or what I read. The notice that Jeff will put.
No, there's a notice from each of the boards.
Right, I understand. Well, in a case like that, can't we just tailor it to say, to not put the notice from each of the boards, just to say that this is going to be under notice of public hearing and list the 3 days? Have a special sign for cases that are special.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. If they're overlapping,
Yeah.
you could say, in the
Instead of having
slip-in
the
thing,
whole description.
you would say zoning board and
Right.
planning board, and then you could,
Unfortunately, what
Contact
you're
the
gonna
village
have is one of them's gonna go first,
Mhm.
and that's gonna go in the envelope, and then the second one's gonna get scheduled. Somebody's gotta take the first one out, create a
It's
second
a
one,
piece
put
of
it in the
paper.
envelope.
yeah, I think it can be worked out.
Yeah.
Whose responsibility is it? The applicant?
I would think
Well,
so.
In those cases, when the board is assigning this, the board is gonna confirm with the applicant that they need to get this sign, and if there are special instructions, that's when the board will tell the applicant.
So if I'm interested in something and there's a sign there with a little pouch on the side with all the information, it's taken out, someone puts another one in, what is gonna make me go back and look to see that there's another one and the sign is
Your
different?
own sense of community responsibility.
No, good point. He's already read it. He's
Yeah,
already read it. He
so
thinks he
that's
has
a-
all the information.
So maybe at the top of the insert paper, it says zoning board, and then the next week it says HDRB. So at least there's some visual change. I think, at the very least, this would be an improvement, even if it only had one illegible
We
thing
could
there.
color code them, use a different color for each.
And I don't know that the
Colors and the
average
shade.
resident is getting that granular. I think that what we're really doing is saying something's going on here, right?
A notice of
And
public
that's
hearing.
kind of my
And-
reasoning.
And
If-
follow it, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, to make
Go on,
it
Tom.
simple and say, public hearing, this will be under, or notice, public hearing, this project is whatever, and with where you can find the information. You don't have to change anything, if they're aware of it. If they, as Lynn said, the onus is on people. If you're interested, something's happening here, call.
I
I
think
mean,
just
you could
having
have
a
a boiler.
sign there is gonna get people's attention.
I think
Having
that's
some
it.
sort of big
Yeah,
consistent
you're gonna
sign.
walk by Carolyn's and you're gonna care or you're not gonna care,
Yeah.
right? The granular level of detail of whether or not it's a side yard variance, or this is kind of the world that we live in. I think that the average resident is looking going, wait, you're gonna tear this building down, right? Or you're gonna, what's gonna happen to the storefront look of Silver Spoon? How do you fit in 7 hotel rooms and still maintain a storefront? You're either gonna have interest in that application or you're not, and I don't think they're gonna have our level of interest, which is, oh, well, it's a change of use under 39-4 you know, it's, you know, or, you know, you're looking at chapter 64, they're gonna say, I care about this view shed, I care about, you know, this, and I'm gonna follow this, right?
So if what you have is a sign that says, there's going to be a hearing about this property, go to the village website. What do I do next? I go to the village website.
Or you call the clerk.
I think one of the simplest ways to do it is, in
Contact
fact,
the village
if you want to issue this, if the village wants to have a standard sign, I think a grease pencil is not a bad idea, to just say it's under application to these boards, check, check, check. Go talk to the boards, right? Check the calendar for that board, follow that thing. It's still your job to follow, we've got
I'm
Silver
sorry.
Spoon coming in on Thursday.
I'm sorry,
We don't
let's
have
go,
an
let's go
application yet,
back
right.
to that. Let's go back to that. Grease pen, check ZBA, check HDRB. I'll go to the ZBA website and I'll go to the ZBA agenda. It's not there,
It's not there.
so that doesn't help me.
But
The
Jeff,
agendas are not being posted in it.
You go
Well,
to the
this is-
clerk,
Oh, village clerk.
Jeff
This is
is
my-
already handling pretty much building
Oh,
the
I don't,
the
yeah, I don't think
beginning
it
of
should
the
go to the
application.
clerk, I think the clerk has the least amount of information, I
Jeff
think that
posts the,
they still are required, they just, they need to come to a meeting.
Right.
So
Jeff-
No,
here's-
but he could direct you, say what date it is
But
and
it's
when
on the
the,
website.
when the,
But it's,
post them
it-
on the
People
front page
don't-
of the
Yeah.
website.
but people don't necessarily, or will say they don't have a computer, or they
Okay, in
don't
that
want
case, they
it.
have to.
So a couple of things to remember. If you go with Dave's idea of not having any notice about what the meeting is, but just that there is a hearing coming up, then you definitely need some clear place on the website. And that will be better than what we have now, which is nothing. If you also have to remember that there's more than just seeing the public notice. All of the application documents are public, and somebody who's interested could come in and look at the plans. So you may not be able to prevent Jeff from having to deal with that if it brings
They've got
people in to
deal
want to
with
look at the
already
plans.
if people wanna find anything
They-
or want.
right,
that's
they
the
are allowed,
person they're
but-
going to.
so
So
I've
we-
got a sign
People
that
get a letter,
says,
they'll
there's
get
gonna be a
posted.
public meeting. Go to the village website. So there's a list, I looked at it today, this meeting's canceled, that meeting's canceled, that meeting's canceled, that meeting's canceled, that meeting's canceled. There's a meeting tomorrow night, and there was a meeting tonight. That was the only thing that I saw on the front page of the website. If I go to the individual boards' websites and look at the agendas, they're not there.
Well, this is what I'm proposing, Marie. If you want to refer people to the website, you need to have a dedicated section.
Okay.
Click here for public hearings.
Jeff has been posting the public hearings and any other important
You're saying that
notices
before the
on the
meetings,
front page of the
agendas are being
website, he's
posted?
been posting them there for months,
Tell
right
me,
underneath the picture.
ask him when he
Notice of
posts
public
the
hearing.
agenda for the ZBAs.
We do it the week of. They're not official notice.
So the week of, there's an information on the village website about the
Right.
ZBA meeting agenda.
This is getting off track because the agenda is not the public information we're talking about.
But the-
It's the public hearing and potentially the application materials.
So I'm trying to find out when the public hearing is going to be on, 792 Wood Avenue in Nelsonville. 792 Market Street. How do I find that out now?
So
It's on the
Now-
front page of the village website.
now it's in the paper, it's on the website, maybe it's on Facebook.
So on the website,
Or if you
where,
live next to it, you got it.
Front page, Marie.
it's,
Jeff posts the public hearings on the front page. has
okay,
been
and they're
for a long
posted
time.
the week of?
This is this one that I see, he posts them when he gets them. This is the tree advisory. It's for Wednesday, September 26th, which I believe is
Yes.
tomorrow. I don't know when it went up. I assume it went up when he got it. Now,
We,
what if we print these and have a section on the front windows of the office, one corner, maybe the one right next to the police door, those windows, and post public hearings? Print them out, post them. People can walk up to the office and read them.
So then they go to
They-
17 Academy Street, and there's gonna be a public hearing, and they walk down to the village office and see when the public hearing is?
Or they can go online, but if they
Do you-
don't go online.
I don't have a computer, you were the one who said that.
Okay. No,
Do you want us to,
Jeff
do you want us
takes
to take this back, I mean, I kinda jumped into this late, do you want us to take this back and come up with something more cohesive, or?
I think so,
Yeah, I think this, I would
I think it's a
appreciate.
good idea, for sure.
And I think one thing,
But
it's,
you're open to
it's like a
concept, yeah.
campaign
Yeah.
sign or something, if you have elect somebody, or what- yeah, and then people put all kinds of smaller detail, and no one's reading it, that's why I just think it's gotta, if you had a sign out on Carolyn's that there was a public hearing scheduled, notice, big notice sign, public hearing, people are just gonna, first of all, grapevine it, and find it that way, and then other people, if you had the call village clerk or somewhere, they'll follow up on it. If
Yeah.
they have no idea, then they're relying on the papers, and they're relying on three
I
other.
agree, I don't think that the sign doesn't replace their responsibility to go get the
Right.
information. The sign is to make them know that there's information to be had, right? And if they don't do something, that time will pass, right? You know, so we don't have people coming in saying, I didn't know, I didn't get any of this, what do you mean it's gonna be demolished, what do you mean, yeah.
So I tend to agree that a simpler sign with a section where you can put a grease pencil, it's a ZBA public hearing on this date. Then they can go and find out more details if they want more details. We don't have to have all the details right there.
I would-
you know,
That's less of a burden on
just
the
a simple,
applicant too.
yeah, agreed.
If you guys go back, maybe coordinate with the HDRB, see if they want to do it, find the sections where you want to put things, and then whatever, I'll go with your recommendations. That was, my input is that I think simpler is better. And I, you know, if you're gonna change these off, or if you have to keep changing them, then I think for different boards or different hearings, then I think people aren't gonna notice them as much, or they might notice the first one, but that's just my opinion, so I'll go with you guys' recommendations, if that's what you wanna do. I think if you could just, you know, digest that a little bit, I'd appreciate it. I'm all for the signs. I think they're great. I wanna see them. I
Great.
just don't want,
Great.
and I understand you don't want, you know, this to be more work for Jeff or whatever, so, and that is a concern, and I talked to Jeff about that today, so.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for working on that, by the way.
Yes. Okay, the, next and, final discussion of the night is, the C Street docking fees. Marie and I met with them earlier on, and they were supposed to get back to us with, numbers from, of what they charge other ports or whatever, and they never did. It's about 2 weeks away, so we contacted them, was it yesterday? Yesterday, we're 2 weeks away, you know, we haven't, you know, agreed on a number, you haven't told us when you're coming in, you know, we don't have any information, no application's been filled, so, anyway, we discussed a number of things with them. One easy one is they wanted to put bumpers on and leave them there for the year, so that's an easy one. The other is the amounts. They didn't give us more information like we requested, which they said they would again, but they came back, you know, with a lump sum number of, last year, the total with police was 18,582. They came back, and they didn't say how they calculated this, or came up with this number of 19,358, for this year. I haven't seen a list of dates yet. Last year they had 10 and a half weekends. This year,
5.5 weekends.
what was that?
5.5 weekends.
5.5 weekends, right, yeah, sorry, 5.5 weekends. And some of those days, they had 2 boats that came and some only 1. Last year they had a smaller ship, they had one that they say can hold 500, but we calculated or estimated at 350 as an average, I guess. This year they have a new boat that holds 500, like in enclosed areas, 2 decks, and then they have another deck that's another 200. So they're up over like 700 people that can go on these. They're saying that they wouldn't bring any more than 500. Although
600. They
What's
said
that?
Limit is 6.
Did they say 6?
Yep.
Anyway, so those are the differences of the years. They didn't tell us. They said on occasion we would like to maybe have the option of bringing 2 boats to the smaller boats, or maybe one of the smaller boats. So they weren't definite on how many days they were going to do anything on that. I guess they didn't know. It depends on ticket sales,
Right.
which happen during the week. It's like something they don't have in advance, like a month in advance or anything. So I kind of calculated stuff, you know, with the numbers we had last year and broke it down to how much per passenger. Not that I want to charge per passenger. And then added like 5% to that, and I came up with like $21,000, which is $1,900 more than they came back with us with. No real rhyme or reason. We don't really know exactly how many boats they're going to bring in. If they get a rainy day and people are looking at forecasts, they might only bring 200 people. But I guess that's not
What
our
do they
problem.
charge per person?
They charge $85. That's for adults. I think it's 40 for
Do
kids.
they pay us once at the end of the season or the beginning of the
No,
season?
they pay on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. They don't wait to the end, so we do get checks in between.
So these bumpers, are they gotta tie into the dock? They're gonna
Yeah.
keep them all?
Yeah.
Well, what
They're
if someone-
fenders.
What if, will that hinder any other boats that might wanna
No,
come?
they're 8 foot tall, 3 feet 8 feet long, 3 feet, deep, and they're going to install them, at their first docking, which is October sixth, and they'll remove them at the last docking.
So they're not just held on like a piece of rope then?
No, this is the actual industrial fender,
Got it.
industrial maritime fender.
They're gonna hook it up to the docks up
I
there.
don't know how they didn't say how they're fastening.
Yeah, I was just wondering, cause like with those buoys, you keep
Right,
ropes,
yeah.
all of a sudden,
I think they're
someone
little-
steals them out of them or something.
That's gonna be theirs.
Yeah, I understood, but just didn't know how that it would affect any other boats that would be coming there.
I don't know that we have anybody else coming in
Yeah,
Well,
we don't have
for the-
anyone else.
for the remainder of the year.
We don't think. So I guess the question is, do we, accept their offer was 19,358, which is over last year's for the, I guess it would probably be the same amount of boats coming in, or maybe less.
Fewer boats,
It
more
could be
people.
fewer, more people left,
Right.
so,
That's not even
but there's no way to
5%.
really
But
calculate that.
you said last year was 18,500 something?
Yeah, 18,582.
That's not even 5%, I mean,
And that
I would,
The 19, yeah, no,
yeah,
it's,
I would give them, raise them like maybe 10% at least.
I'm sorry, you would do what? And part of that money
Well, if
was
they
the
don't have-
police.
yes, and part of the money is police. There's 16,000 something for the docking fees and 2,000 something for
Police.
I mean, if we raise them,
2,062 for police.
if we raise them 10%, it would be 20,440.
No, we could only do that on the docking fees.
Yeah, but
The
they're
police-
giving us a
We
lot.
could do it
police
on the
would-
total and just give a lump sum and then pay the police whatever.
Oh, I thought what we did is we, identified on a day basis, how many cops
Mhm.
that were working that day. And that depends upon the amount of time that they're in port.
But the difference is only 2 hours, so when I
About
did my
2 hours,
calculation,
yeah.
it was, I just added the 2 hours and every weekend that they're gonna have to pay for 6 hours of
Yeah.
police, of an extra police officer.
If
What
we
time
go
do they
with
usually
the,
get here in the morning?
about 11 o'clock, if they're bringing up 2 boats, the first boat gets in about 10:30. Thereabouts.
I would counter offer, I mean, they're throwing a number at you, I would counter back to something more in the line of what your
Well,
calculation
if we do
was.
21,000, then whatever, I'm up for whatever anyone wants to do, that's only like, it's like not even $200 a boat more than what they're offering.
What we would have to do is draft an agreement with them.
Right.
Our current docking agreement would not support that
Right.
number,
No,
not even
Yeah.
close.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, but,
So it would have to be a customized agreement with C Street.
yeah, I know that I wouldn't go by just what the number they gave us.
I think at one point they said actually aren't paying you a lot. Didn't they say something
I
to that?
don't remember
It
that.
was, they did.
I don't remember that. You may be right, but I don't
Dumb,
remember
dumb,
that.
dumb.
If it's okay, I'll counter with my 21,324, unless you think we should go higher. And if they don't accept that, we,
They
go
counter.
go in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm good with you going with your number.
I agree.
Anyone else thoughts, Marie?
Golden Goose,
What's that?
Golden Goose,
I know it's a golden goose. They can say no and then,
don't kill the goose,
what's that?
don't kill the goose.
Well, so you think we should just go with their 19,000?
What are they offering, 19 what?
$19,358.
Go to 20.
I would,
Well, we can go back to 20 if we get 21.
Yeah.
If we go 20, we're not going anywhere.
Um,
go to 21 and settle in the,
Yeah,
What would it be if we went by our rate schedule, just curious?
it goes by feet.
significantly lower,
Oh,
Goes
really, a lot
Yeah.
lower.
Length
a
of the boat.
lot lower. We charge now $8 a linear foot.
Right.
It's 150, that's a 150-foot long boat.
Per visit.
So it's $1,200 a day, and there's 10 days, 11 days, no, 9 days. So it would be a lot less.
But isn't there multiple
Not
boats?
with two boats.
No,
No bigger
no,
boats.
right now, their expectation is they'll be able to fit everybody on the larger boat, the newer boat, the 150-foot boat.
Right.
If they
Excuse
come in with a smaller boat that's 140 feet, so it's even less for docking fees.
You said they get $85 a person,
They do.
they get 500 people, they possibly?
600.
I just did that, it's $42,000.
They're making,
one
they're
shot.
making a lot of money, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, what they did, their new boat cost, it was a $24 million investment. Has
Oh.
4 Rolls-Royce engines and,
Are we supposed to feel bad for them?
I know.
No
I mean,
offense.
that, which I think they said took 20 tons off of the weight, so this thing goes
Fast.
45 miles an hour,
Yeah, so they're up here quick,
I checked,
and use a lot more gas.
I
probably.
checked-
40 miles an hour.
I checked some of the other locations where they dock in the summertime as a cruise ship as opposed to a commuter boat. And they charge 25 cents a person per head. So if we went on a per head basis, we'd lose even more money.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
going per, and the way that's administered is it's in the price of the ticket.
I think
Right.
that from what he said though, they also make agreements with the towns or whatever as far as
Yes, they
like
do.
yearly docking
Yeah,
on top of that.
the, Massachusetts, Connecticut, it's much more frequent
Right.
that they visit those ports.
Well, I would say go up 10%, which comes to $20,444.
What's it come to?
$20,444 is 10% more than what they paid last year.
And
And-
that includes the police.
That includes everything.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a flat figure.
And the 21,324 is like 13%.
So you can go 12% or 10% or 10%. I'll go with 10%.
10%?
Take the money,
What's that?
take the money and run.
Okay. I will fire back with 20.
When is anybody else handing this village $20,000? It doesn't happen very often.
Let me see.
So-
Okay.
Now, as part of the discussion, I'd like to make a recommendation that we increase the docking fees in our docking agreement. They're currently $6 linear foot if the boat does not stay, $8 a linear foot if the boat stays. And I recommend increasing it to, let's say, at least 6 and 11, if not, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
from 6 to 8.
What's the boat club charge? Do they charge people to come?
They don't charge anything.
They don't.
They
Most-
don't?
Most popular boat club on the river, because they don't charge
Oh,
anything.
I thought they used to.
So I would recommend going up from 6 to 8 for just docking and then leaving, and going up to 11 for staying over, staying docked at the
Okay.
dock. Could even go higher, it just does not seem that those fees are reasonable. Based on my,
Do we have anything as
Extensive
far as
maritime experience.
what the duration is for 11 for if they dock? Do we have something written down, like if they're there for an hour, does that constitute?
no, we don't. We don't have a duration, and from what I understand, the docking and leaving is typically up to 45 minutes.
Okay. Should we add something like that?
I was just thinking the same thing, that if they were gonna stay, we should have some sort of specification as far as how long they're allowed to stay.
So maybe what we should do is go from 6 to 8 and from 8 to 12
If they're gonna tie up our docks for
for the day.
when we have
Yeah.
tourists who would like to be down there looking at the view.
Okay. You wanna make a motion?
I make a
or-
motion that we change our docking fees from the current rate to the new rates of $8 and $12.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anything else on C Street? I'll contact them tomorrow. Let's see, approvals, batch number 4791.
For the amount of $46,835.59.
I'll make a motion to accept. Or approve, sorry. Do I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes for 9/11/18, Village Board of Trustees, monthly meeting. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes. Just one discussion on the last page, we approved the minutes of August 28th with a vote of 4-401. I believe it should be 302 because Lynn also was not at that meeting, I believe, at least according to my notes, August 28th, Lynn. Do you remember?
Yes, that was the one that I missed.
Okay, so there were two absents. So the top of page 6, Michael, the vote should be 302 with Mayor Morandi and Trustee Miller abstaining.
And I suspect at the meeting, we probably passed it 4-0, but you're correct. Lynn that should not have been a correct vote.
Anything else?
Mhm.
So I will make a motion to approve the minutes from 9/11/18 with the one change from 401 vote to 302 vote on the final page of the minutes.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything from our beloved audience?
No, just on October 20th, my daughter's getting married, and I just want to stop by there, because you don't get pictures taken after the wedding.
That's
Congratulations.
unbelievable, not happening.
And what's the fee schedule?
I just want-
Who's getting married?
Rachel, my oldest daughter.
Good.
Congratulations.
So it should be around 2:30. Won't take long.
You're
you
not
know.
doing Oktoberfest?
Oktoberfest is this weekend.
Oh, when is she